So welcome everyone. This is an info share from the eduGAIN service about the eduGAIN FTX pilot. And the eduGAIN FTX pilot aims, as you know, aims at measuring the authentication events for the identity federations that participate to eduGAIN. Today we will speak about some of the reasons why you should be interested to this pilot, why you should join the pilot in order to have a better understanding of the use of your identity federation and of eduGAIN by your identity federation participants. And so what is in there for you and your community, and something more about the FTX standard. So these topics will be covered by Miroslav Milinovic, that is leading the FTX team. And after that, we will have a brief question and answer section, and then we will go ahead with Boro Yakimovsky, that is responsible for the FTX infrastructure. There we will speak about the technical architecture of the eduGAIN FTX pilot and how to join and deploy a local instance of the FTX collector and the statistics engine. So if you have any question during the presentation, please just drop them in the chat. We will take note and we will address them in the question and answer section. Please also remember that, as Lisha is telling everyone, the webinar will be recorded, well, is currently recorded and will be available on the GÉANT wiki as well as on other GÉANT, the other GÉANT learning platform. With that, I'd say that we are good to go. And I will leave the floor to Miro for his presentation.
Thanks, Davide, and welcome to all. Good day, good afternoon, good morning, regarding of where you are. In Australia, it's morning, if I'm right. Nice to hear that quite a number of you are interested in this thing. What I'm going to do is an overview of what we have done, why and what we have done. And then Boro will provide the gory technical details for those who are interested in that. So without further ado, let's see what is behind this whole idea. I hope you see the slides nicely. If not, please let us know or let me know. So what is the problem? Why should I join? Why bother? At first, I think that all of us want to know how our infrastructure is being used. It's not novel thing that sometimes people use your tools in the way that you have not foreseen, or even you feel it's quite utterly wrong. Still, they use it. So who is using our federation infrastructure and how? That's the question. And of course, the even basic authentication statistics can give you quite a nice information about how it is being used. You can understand better the community needs. Of course, you can do the capacity planning, but in all the way you can plan further maintenance and development better. Of course, you can provide info to your stakeholder and financiers who want to know, okay, is this being used, or this is just an academic endeavor, just a team playing around with his or her ideas. And of course, you want to compare and benchmark with other similar systems to say, okay, why on earth they have such a large traffic and we don't, or the other way around. And finally, last but not the least, you can even use this kind of thing, the usage information, to run a basic diagnostics or a monitoring tool. To explain better what I'm talking about, at the end, at the bottom part of the slide, there is the graph taken from my own federation, AI eduHR Croatian Academic and Research Federation, which actually is a simple, I'll call it a ticker, you'll know why later on, which provides the information about the number of authentication per minute. So this is aggregate per minute. Blue line shows the absolute number. The green field is the good ones, okays, and the red ones are failures. And this is aggregate for the whole federation for, let's say, 2 weeks. And you could immediately see that at some point of time, somebody decided to shut down schools and faculties, and teaching lessons are starting at 8 o'clock in the morning. You can see even when the Monday is. So this is the place, this is the top capacity you could plan for. And if you pay attention to the left side, you will see an interesting red spike there. What happened on Earth? We know what happened. There was a major disruption in the part of the system that actually supports primary and secondary schools. So school children wanted to join the e-learning system, but they couldn't because it failed. So this is the diagnostic part. These graphs give us a rough idea if something is wrong, or give us quite an interesting idea, quite a comprehensive information on how to plan the capacity. So we probably have to plan for the average, and Sundays and Mondays people do something else. But then there are some peaks which actually challenge our central system with more than, or with around, let's say, 2,000 authentications per minute, or authentication events per minute. And then what is the ethics? I talked about it a bit. So the whole idea was developed and successfully is being used for eduroam. The idea is to gather information about the authentication traffic, and the ethic is actually a simple authentication log entry. Somebody logged in here using the other system. So combining in the log service provider, identity provider, and the action result as a minimum. And to send these logs, this is not really a surprise, the syslog is used. That's the simple tool that is actually being currently used in many systems to collect logs. And of course, the log entry is being sent from source system, the one that triggered the event or done an event, to the collector, which actually then aggregates and analyzes the results. To learn more about the ethics for eduroam, here is the URL, and of course there was the even internet draft by Leif Johansson and Stefan Winter that actually describes the log format that we call an FTIC. Federation ticker is the original name. And the graphs that are being shown here are not only illustrations that are being derived from the very thick collection that we have for eduroam. So we could compare, for instance, the upper graph, we could compare the number of authentications in a year and see what is the trend, and even realize that COVID has done something wrong to mobility. People stopped actually being mobile, especially in international scale. And also the lower graph can give us immediate information. This is for an hour, for instance, and the columns show the number of authentications or visits, so to say, and the lines actually show where the visitors are coming from to a country. So you can have you can visualize the results in various ways. So this is the reason why, and this is the concept. What we actually done, we decided, inspired by the success of the FTICs for eduroam, which is currently being heavily used, to do something with the eduGAIN tool. And that work started back even in GÉANT 4.2. And at this moment, we do have some results we want to share with you. So the idea was to explore the possibilities of gathering eduGAIN usage data to collect authentication events it was quite clear from the start that it should be from the IDP's point of view, not from the service provider's point of view. So the IDPs would be the ones who would send the log entries, and then to collect them at a central point, analyze and present gathered data. At the same time, provide the national federation operators ability to have a look at their own statistics, as well as compare it with the others and provide the global stats too. So what we currently have is the log format defined. It is a bit of a redefined original FTIX for eduROM. So we have FTIX for eduGAIN log format. Then we have a central site, which is eduGAIN collector and the reporting service. Reporting is being done via website. I will present what is currently available there, but I will say that a few more times. It's up to you to ask for more or different ways of presenting gathered information. So at this moment, something is carved in stone, more or less, and that is the log format. But for the rest, I mean, only your imagination and the needs are the limits. And finally, we have a software package for federation aggregators. So we have an architecture which asks federation operators to do something. And for that, we have prepared the software package. And the way how you're going to do it is, again, up to your decision and ideas, and of course, resources that you can provide for this thing. So the TIC format first. This is the one. So if you look at the gray square, this is the again, this is actually normal ASCII text, and this is the format. So it starts with the reserved word FTIX according to the internet draft, of course, and then the federation ID. This federation ID is actually a federation code which is available at the technical website, but also we have a table on our website where you can find your federation's ID. Then the attribute AP, assertion point, or assertion provider, or in some language IDP entity ID. It's quite clear what it is. Then the relying party or SP entity ID, service provider, and the result. And the result is coded, it's either OK or fail. These are two allowed values for this attribute. Furthermore, there are two optional ones, CSI, which is hashed SAML session ID, and PN, which is pseudonymized user ID. These two are optional because some people are concerned about the user privacy and GDPR stuff and similar things. But as both of them are hashed or pseudo-anonymized, I would say you don't have an issue. But if you don't want to send them, it's optional. And finally, the timestamp, TS. So this is the format. It's quite an easy and simple log entry, which allows us to collect quite a comprehensive amount of information and provide an interesting graphs that I will show later on. Now, how this whole system works, the architecture. We have, as I said, a central system, and the central system has a collector which collects the logs which are sent out by federation aggregators. So the idea here is that the individual IDPs send via syslog log entries or FTIX to the federation, and then federation resends them to our central collector. There is a possibility for an IDP to directly send ticks to the collector, but let me explain that a bit later when this is possible. And the central system itself has a collector, and then Elasticsearch and Kibana set of tools, ELK tool, which actually, aside of collecting, does the analysis and presentation of the results through the website. And we have additional component called aggregator, which aggregates simple information and provides it in the real-time manner that you would see on the website. So we know in last 24 hours how many authentications events were there in the system, provided to the central system, central eduGAIN FTX collector. So this is the architecture, and when it comes to technical details, especially about the ELK tool, Boro will tell you a bit more about how it is being set up and what can we do with it, and what else is up to you. And when it comes to organization, again, it's quite important to underline that we do expect that the ticks will come from federations, from federation aggregators, not from the IDPs individually. So IDPs send ticks to federations, and federations then resend them to the central collector. There is a possibility, if a federation is not willing or able to set up an aggregation and an aggregator, and an IDP really wants to join, then with the consent of federation operator, an IDP can send ticks directly to the central service. How to join as a federation? So you have to set up that federation aggregator, that block. But what it is actually, it's either your own solution or something that we provided as a software package. It's ELK-based solution, and is downloadable from our pages. Again, Boro will tell you a bit more about it later on. The FTX should be in the right format, as I have shown earlier. And then it has to be sent to specific collector site. Here is the host name, and here is the port. Once you have prepared it, once you are sending ticks, let us know about it. That would be it would be enough to send an email to support@edugain.org saying, hey, here are we, this is our federation, and this is the IP address of our aggregator. This is the IP address of the host that is sending out the ticks. That's it. All the instructions are available at our website, plus your IDPs should do some trick-outs, and that includes the setup for IDPs software. So we have instructions for setting up the SHIB IDP version of 3 plus and Simple SAML PHP. For SHIB, it's really a configuration issue. For SSP, it's more about adding additional module and configuring it properly. And what about this aggregator, federation level aggregator? You can use the solution that meet your needs, and your, of course, available resources. So your solution can be as simple as a syslog solution, simple syslog which collects and resends. So your all IDPs in your federation, or some IDPs, it's not necessary that you provide ticks from all IDPs. Somebody can opt out if they want, if they are so frightened about sending logs to somewhere else in the world. So a simple syslog would do a trick. They send it to you, and you resend it to the central point, and that's it. Of course, you can keep them on your side for your own purposes. Of course, you can, even with a simple syslog, filter those ticks or adjust them if needed and what is needed. You can also have your own tool. My federation has our own tools. I don't know, the Swedish Federation has one, some other federations like UK Fed has their own tools. So you can have your own tool to collect stats. And it's enough to modify that tool to send the ticks in the proper format to the eduGAIN collector. That's your own solution. But then another thing is, if you don't have a solution and want to do it, we offer an ELK-based solution. Again, you can download the software package from our pages, from the GÉANT software repository, and Boro will explain a bit more in details about it. But again, there are some instructions on our website, and I think it's a good recipe, so you can use it to set it up. At the end, again, I'd like to underline that it's not necessary to provide FTICs from all IDPs. So your aggregator should send the ticks from the IDPs that actually want to join. More the merrier. If you can provide the whole federation, that would be perfect. That would be perfect for your picture, for your understanding of the traffic. But if somebody, if one out of 200 doesn't want to join, that's it. You are still welcome to join, especially in this pilot phase. So as an IDP, again, we strongly encourage IDPs to join via their federation operator, via their federation. So send the ticks to your federation operator, to your national aggregator, federation aggregator, and they will resend collect them all and send them to eduGAIN collector. An IDP, again, I said, may still join individually if federation has no resources or interest to join. An IDP still insists on that. And of course, federation operators should give a consent to that. So if you don't want to join, but some of your IDPs won't, we are sorry for that, but yeah, you have to tell them, you have to tell us that it's okay for you, that you are okay with them joining directly. For the IDPs, the idea is the same. Set up your IDP logs in a proper way, in the right format, and set up syslog to send the ticks directly to collector.ftix edugain org port 514. And again, you have to send us an email. IDP has to send us an email. This time you have to give us also the IDP's entity ID, so we can guess which one it is that is sending ticks. Instructions again at the website. So more or less, this is the WISE and the technical layout setup. What is the current status? At this moment, we have 6 federations participating, 3 of them actually with all they have, or at least the all IDPs which wanted to join the thing. And we have that software package for Federation Aggregator, which is available for the download, as I said earlier, from the GÉANT repository. You will find the link at our website, which, aside of instructions and downloads, has the stats and graphs, which are currently available. And that is something that I want to show you in the next slides. If you want to contact us, please use the support email, support@edugain.org, and they do know how to, they do know some answers, and for the rest, for the technical details, they will put you in contact directly with the FTIX team. Graphs. Again, let me remind you, we have 2 components. One is the ELK component, rich with the possibilities of configuring the graphs, and the other is aggregated one, which is fast and allow us to have a look and feel of the traffic at the moment. So at the menu, if you select the aggregated, there is a statistic menu item, and then there is a sub menu. If you select the aggregated, you will get the 2 typical graphs, which are also presented at the homepage of the FTIX, which actually provide the number of authentications in last 24 hours. The red ones, the red line is failed, and the green ones are the successful authentications. Might be that some federations are not sending all the errors, only the successful authentication. Mine is the first that does that wrongly at this moment. So to a certain extent, this graph is not really at this moment so I would say correct. But as more participants we will have, it will provide more real information about the traffic in the eduGAIN. So these 2 graphs that you see. First one shows the number of authentications. The second one shows the number of objects, federations, scenes, SPs, and IDPs, and the resolution is 1 minute. We will definitely provide aggregates with other resolutions, like 1 hour, 1 day, 1 month. So graphs will look differently, and will then allow you to have an idea about the traffic and the way users and our systems behave over time. What is interesting here, why this menu item is rounded with a red circle. If you click on that menu item here, you will have a sub menu which will allow you to either enlarge the size of the graph or download the data. So at this moment, you can download these numbers to your machine in the comma separated value format, and then play with it as much as you want. These statistics are provided globally for the whole ticks that we get, but also per federation. So the 6 federations that join us can have these graphs for themselves and check what has happened in their federation in the last 24 hours, just by visiting this page. So this is aggregated stats. But the ELK stack, ELK tool actually provides us to provide configurable reports. We actually provide the global IDP SP matrix, and there's some numbers, some graphs of authentications processed by IDPs, SPs, and identity federations. That is, again, several items of the sub-many statistics. You will be able to, for all the graphs, you will be able to set up the time, so last 30 days, last day or so. You will be able to select a federation, an IDP or SP according to the possibilities and very graphs. So let me explain this a bit further in a few more examples. If we feel lucky, we can then, if time permits, check that in real life. So these are just, of course, slides. Global IDP SP matrix actually provides you to see the most active IDP SP pairs. So you can, on one scale, on one line or axis, there are the SPs, on the other are IDPs. And of course, here, the more federations and IDPs join, it would be merrier, because then we expect that the global SPs providing service to all federations, those who are in eduGAIN and would normally be used by all IDPs, federations, not going to mention names like Microsoft or Google. Yeah, we expect them to be here in a very dark green. This means that quite a lot of traffic is here. But here, due to the fact that we have only 6 federations and not all IDPs, it seems like e-learning tool, in Croatian e-learning tool has the is the dark greenest of them all. But again, that is because of the data that we have. Here you can actually compare and see where your IDPs fits and how popular it is in other federations, or is it really being used in international context, or at least if you reframe this graph only to the to your federation, then you would see this matrix for your federation only. Furthermore, authentications processed by IDP. Now you can see the most popular IDPs. Okay, again in a federation or by SP. And again here, this one with very long green line is actually a central login page. Hub and Spoke Federation is Croatian one. So this is a bit like one would expect this one would be among the first ones. Again, you can restrict that to your federation and then see which IDPs are most used and which actually are not so much used. Of course, the same stuff with the SPs, so you can see which are the SPs most used globally and in your IDP, or even in your federation, or even by an IDP. So a question for faculty X, which are the most popular services? You can see that. But you can also see that that faculty is not using some services at all. So question mark there. So depending on what is the question, you can have here, you can graphically represented answer. And I said at the promise that it could be even used for diagnostics, and we'll deliver that later on. Before that, just a slide on authentications process by a federation. So you see here, in a selected period of time, how many authentications were out there sent, authentication events sent by a federation. So we see how busy federations are in a given time. Yeah, diagnostics among the last slides. So in that slide showing the number of authentications per IDP, the green ones are accepts and okays, and the blue ones are fails. So if you see such a graph, you could really guess, and that wouldn't be wrong, that these two IDPs with quite a large portion of the blue column do have unusual number of fails. One would say, okay, 10% of fails are probably because people don't know how to authenticate, how to type passwords and logins. But this sounds fishy. This is something wrong. So you have a kind of reason to believe that something is wrong, and or was wrong, and contact the IDP or alert IDP, depending on how you treat these figures and graphs. Do you act upon them or in real time, or you are checking later on? So this helps identify irregularities. And again, as these reports are configurable, and even the aggregation is a matter of what we agree on, if you have any ideas for reports and graphs, let us know. It's easy to add, and we would really love to bring this idea and the pilot to the full-blown service, and something that community needs, we think, and will use, we hope. Yeah. And just to remind you why to join, to understand how the community is using your service, to identify the most popular one and underused one. Maybe you need some to disseminate a bit, to plan for further maintenance and development, capacity planning at the top, to compare and benchmark to see who is better, and try to chase him, be even better than the best ones. Of course, provide info for stakeholders, and as far as I'm concerned, and as far as I know, finances would love to see that figures, millions of authentications, quite an interesting thing. And last but not the least, have some diagnostic information, have something to prove, oh yeah, but system was working, or indeed we had some issues last weekend. So thank you for your attention. I hope this 30 minutes or so were interesting enough, and you have decided to join. And questions are more than welcome.
Thank you very much, Miro. So I would leave the floor to Boro now.
Thank you. Share my screen. Okay. Hello to everybody. I will continue the demonstration of the eduGAIN ethics pilot. Mainly, I will talk about the collector. And as Miro said, tools that we developed to the project in order to help federations to aggregate their FTICs and resend them to the central collector. As we said, the pilot organization relies on federations. Federations and their IDPs. The only thing that that federations need to deploy is the FTICs aggregator, which has been developed or either by them or by the software tools that we developed through the project, and the IDPs to send their data to their FTICs aggregator using the syslog protocol. The IDPs mainly are supported are Shibboleth and Simple SAML PHP, but hopefully others will join as well with the implementation of the FTICs syslog format. Then the FTICs aggregator need to resend this data. They can process this data prior to resending to the collector. They can filter out data that they do not want to be sent to the central FTICs collector, and then using again the syslog protocol, resend these messages to the central collector. As Miro mentioned, we support also IDPs directly sending to the FTICs collector in an exceptional circumstances where federations do not deploy their central aggregators, their federation aggregators. So I will start from the bottom. The IDP sending FTICs, as I said, the instructions put on the FTICs eduGAIN.org are pretty simple. The Shibboleth IDP is only a configuration which already is available into the Shibboleth IDP distribution, just setting up several variables. In Simple SAML PHP, it's a bit more work, but still not a big work for the IDP maintainers to configure their IDPs to send FTICs to their federation aggregators. For the federation FTICs aggregator, we said that there's many implementations. Usually they rely on syslog or rsyslog or some other software tools for aggregation and processing of log messages or log events. So rsyslog is the least complex to configure, but has it has lower number of features for processing the log messages and also their visualization. Logstash is the one of the options for collecting log events. There are also different solutions, as we all know, for this. Logstash is usually used since it's has a rich set of plugins for manipulation of the data, where we can process these messages into an extensive set of attributes and then try to use these attributes later on for other purposes, and deploy a full ELK stack where we will use Logstash, but additionally use Elasticsearch and Kibana for the visualization and storing the FTICs. As I said, syslog is pretty simple. It can be up to 4 lines of configuration for the FTICs aggregator, Federation FTICs aggregator, where we just open up the port 514 and every message that contains FTICs, we can just forward this. We collect all the FTICs from our IDPs and resend them automatically without any processing of this data in the syslog. Still, we can do processing in syslog, but it requires some more complex configuration. Logstash implementation has much more features than syslog. It can ingest a large number of FTICs. It can, by ingestion, this means the analysis, the parsing of the FTICs, and breaking down parts of the log message, which is a simple text message, into several parts, creation of a JSON event log record, where we can even further add additional data attributes to the FTIC event log entry. Mainly, we can do an IP-based GeoIP-based tagging of the IDP, or different plugin processing. Also, we can unify the data formats if some of the format of the data is not in the right, is not sent properly from the IDPs. We can also do replacement of this text, do uppercase or lowercase of the data, just to be more easily indexable for the searches later on. Through the project GÉANT 4.3, work package 5, we have developed Ansible scripts for deploying a federation FTICs aggregator based on Logstash. It's actually an Ansible script for deploying an entire ELK stack, but Logstash is a separate role in this Ansible playbook, so confederations can use this role in the Ansible playbook to deploy only Logstash. The third option is to deploy a full ELK stack. The ELK stack contains 3 components: Logstash, Elasticsearch, and Kibana. Logstash is used as I described for parsing, filtering, and expanding of log events, which are then sent to the Elasticsearch database, which indexes this data and makes them available for searching from different visualization or analysis tools. One such tool, which is from the same vendor, Elastic, is Kibana, where we can we can analyze the data and make different kinds of visualizations. As Mira showed you, some of them are available on the FTICs portal on eduGAIN. So the Ansible scripts also is configured to deploy also Elasticsearch cluster, as well as Kibana on top of it, and integrate all components into a single aggregator system. Just for capacity planning for ELK, so usually the FTICs, when they are indexed, expanded and indexed, usually take about 600 bytes. So since usually Elasticsearch doubles this by replicating shards, it usually goes up to around 1 kilobyte more or less per tick. And this then we can use to capacity planning for mainly for the storage of the Elasticsearch nodes. Number of Elasticsearch nodes should be at least 3 for high availability purposes, where usually the default replication of shards is 2. Logstash capacity scaling usually can ingest approximately 10,000 events per second, which is more than enough for the federation, for the current level of federation. Let's say as a sample numbers, usually this number of ticks are per 10 minutes or more or similar values. So the Logstash performance greatly outperforms the current number of events, of FTICs events. For the Kibana, I haven't shown any info since it's a simple front-end tool, so it doesn't consume any server resources. Here, just a sample, we can visualize the data in Kibana in different ways. We can do time-based time series analysis. We can do visualizations. We can do alerting, depending on the licenses of ELK stack that we are that are available, stack that can be used for the federation aggregator. The capacity, the collector deployed in say central collector in FTX pilot uses ELK stack. We have deployed one Logstash node, 3 Elasticsearch nodes, and 1 Kibana node. So the capacity of the virtual machines are 4 CPU cores per server, 16 gigabytes of memory. Logstash node has a little less since it doesn't consume that much at this moment. And we have put around 500 gigabytes of for disk for the Elasticsearch nodes. And we envisioned that we can, with this infrastructure, we can keep up to several years of data collection, depending on the number of federations that join. Let's hope for more. The deployment of the infrastructure, the scale of the infrastructure is dependent on the federation. Entire setup of the entire ELK deployment can be done on one node, which is not recommended since we lose a lot of at least high availability functionalities from Elasticsearch. But suggested is, as we did, 3 nodes for Elasticsearch and a separate node for Logstash and Kibana. They don't have to be that big. The most important elements is the storage, how much disks we will dedicate for storing and how long we will store the FTX, and also since Elasticsearch and Logstash are Java based, usually they consume a little more memory than the others. So the Ansible scripts is very easy to deploy. It's available on GitLab repository of eduGAIN, of GÉANT, sorry, and we only need to prepare initial VMs and install Python for an Ansible and prepare the Ansible access, and then use the ELK stack playbooks that contains 3 roles, so we can only deploy Elasticsearch Logstash, or we can deploy all 3 of them. The Ansible playbooks support both the Debian and Red Hat distributions, so they work on most usually used distributions in federation providers. So final steps, we need to see how to configure the syslog or the Logstash if we use. So what do we send to the central syslog collector? Currently, the initial deployment using the Ansible scripts resends everything. We can do additional processing of the data that we would like to index or resend to the central collector. So if we like to filter out CSI or PN, we can do it in Logstash and with a few lines of code, and it will implement what we'd like to resend to the central logging system. Also, if we would like other data to filter out, as somebody mentioned, but I don't see the reason why, we can also do that as well. As a conclusion, aggregation of FTX requires little effort from the federation, at least to set up the central aggregator and to resend. As we discussed, the convincing IDPs to do this little effort of configuring their IDPs to resend FTX will be an effort, but very useful, as Miro pointed out. and Davide, so starting you can start as a simple solution and upgrade for more complex. So you can start with a syslog, just collecting and resending, or a Logstash, or do a full ELK deployment for the central aggregator. Just join the FTX pilot. This you will receive all support for the technical team in deploying. If there are any, as Mira said, needs for customizing putting more features in the Ansible scripts, we are here to support the community. Thank you for your attention.